against my enemies, yeah. You see, you wanted to save you, and then learn how to raise you. But I forget you're from the wilderness.
Hello, Wisconsin. Eamon. As I just mentioned there, Wisconsin, we were there before. Do you remember?
Would you believe that I don't have much of a memory of Wisconsin outside of that 70s show?
Right, well, let me illuminate Wisconsin for you and the goings-on of that area. So, hanging around and chilling in Wisconsin, Eamon, myself, and Alec Baldwin.
Oh.
We are outside a truck stop and it's getting pretty late. Baldwin is doing a Trump impression. It's beginning to grate.
Oh.
Suddenly, there's a commotion in the woods nearby. Sorry. It's hard to see. Is it a trick of the eye? Nope, it's definitely not, because here comes the beast. It runs for Alec and turns him into a feast.
Oh.
Eamon and I retreat and once again live to tell the tale. We are Monster Fuzz, a podcast without any fails.
Oh, okay.
So you didn't die. Are you happy?
No, yeah, I'm happy I didn't die that time. Put out Alec Baldwin, though.
Well, you know, that fucking impression's played out now, you know.
It is a bit played out now. 4 more years is what I say. But yeah, so let's see. Let's just try to see if we can tap into that at all. See if we can tap into that at all. So, Alec Baldwin ran into the cornfields, hoping not to become a yield of the dogman? Or
someone's
is it
meal?
Someone's meal? Yield? Meal? Seal? Is the dogman a wolf? Or is it a dog? Or is it a cousin of the lovely, low... Yeah, I'm losing it today. Sorry, I got nothing. Fuck that. I'm not doing this today.
Yeah, your brain isn't working. It's okay.
No.
You're forgiven.
I think I could sing a song like watching. Alec Baldwin was running away. The Beast of Bray was right on his tail. Alec Baldwin said, "Fuck, please don't." The Beast of Bray bit off his bone. No more impressions of Trump. They were getting real dumb. He's a wolfman.
Yeah, amazing stuff, Eamon. That was very good. And you're forgiven, by the way, because this is our second episode we're recording back to back. So
back to back.
Yeah, so you're forgiven. Now, today, guys, before we get into it, we are covering the Dogman, but we'd just like to do our little homemade ads here. So we are on Patreon, patreon.com/monsterfuzz. Patreon has lots of fun stuff, vlogs, Discord, Eamon songs, plenty of stuff, and all of that is, you know, you can go on there and take a look back through the archives. So if you do have the spare money and would like to throw it our way, please do. Yeah, it's happy days. Merch, we are on Teespring, so teespring.com/stores/monster-fuzz, and that's where you will get all of your Monster Fuzz merch. Twitter, Monster Fuzz Pod, and I does be tweeting on the Twitter.
Tweet.
Yeah, pretty often. And then everywhere else is Monster Fuzz Podcast. I'm also pretty active on Instagram, so I'd recommend jumping over onto the Insta and even our Facebook. And we really kind of do try and keep everywhere active, don't we?
You're much better than I am. I'm kind of like the drunk uncle that just comes by every now and then and goes, "Hey, everyone's alright? Okay, you need any more pop? Okay, see you kids later."
Well, he's cool as well.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah. Any ghost stories, Eamon? Where do they send ghost
you
stories?
You will need to send your ghost stories to monsterfuzzpodcast@gmail.com. We're currently looking for ghost stories about the sentient Mickey. Have you seen this wild and wonderful creature out in the wild, out in the wilderness? What happened? Was he a pleasant and playful Willie or an aggressive and fierce Mickey? Do let us know. Let us know what your experience was, and what his super abilities are. And we'll get to the bottom of this sentient Mickey mystery that's been just clouding our minds for months now.
Indeed. And a quick shout out, guys, to our patrons. We really do appreciate you. it's a really cool thing that you are willing to support our podcast, and we really do appreciate it every day. I mean, we count our blessings, don't we?
Every day when I wake up, I count my blessings. I have 20 patrons. And that's in the past. In the future, maybe we have more, so we'll wait and see.
Yeah, maybe. So, Eamon, today we are talking about the Beast of Bray Road, and the Beast of Bray Road was suggested to us by one of those patrons, and that patron was Gianni, and that's another perk of our tiers, is that you can suggest an episode, and we will add it to our ever-growing pile, and we'll try and get it out there.
I think this is the third listener suggestion. We did Japanese cryptids, Beast of Bray Road, and the Banshee as well, I believe.
I think maybe 4, and there's plenty more as well, and we're not doing them sequentially, so like, you know, if one of the first patrons requested something and it hasn't come up yet, that's just because we have a plan, guys, and we're sort of, you know, we're picking what fits the theme of where the show's going and all that type of stuff, and where to reference them and all that. That right, Emma?
Yep, we are following a plan, which is the plan of no plan. It's trust in the process, and the goal will come. I think that's the plan I have anyway.
Yeah. So what's the crack with the Beast of Bray Road, Emma?
Well, let me tell you a thing or two about this fella. This really, I must say, just before getting into this was exceptionally interesting. I actually wound up watching the Small Town Monsters documentary, The Beast of Bray Road.
Right.
I think you can like buy on YouTube for a bones of a $5 or whatever. Really interesting. Yeah. You're talking about getting into like satanic cults. You're talking about all this sort of weird stuff going on with the Beast of Bray Road. So really interesting stuff here. We're going to try to cover as much of it as we can. But if you are from Wisconsin and we're missing out or skipping on things, then I would like to bend the knee and apologize to you. We're doing our best though. Why don't you do a fucking podcast on the leprechauns and we'll see how well you do, huh? What about that?
Yeah, exactly.
So, what is the Beast of Bray Road? For a long time, I wasn't sure whether it was a dogman or a wolfman or even a Bigfoot type thing. So, it's the Beast of Bray Road is essentially a large canine-like monster. He's reportedly sighted along Bray Road by numerous witnesses of Elkhorn, Wisconsin. Reported through much of the 20th century, the beast hasn't necessarily been limited to Bray Road either. But Bray Road itself was the location of the first and most notable sighting.
Back in the 30s.
Back in the 30s, yeah. The Bray Road beast is said to resemble an upright, canine-like creature. Its torso resembles that of a muscular human covered in dark greyish-brown fur. Its wolf-like head possesses a long snout filled with sharp teeth, piercing yellow eyes, and pointed ears. Its hands are more of a human-like shape, if you like. So think of your traditional werewolf here is kind of what you're thinking about, with sharp claws, and the legs are digitigrade, like those of a wolf.
Interesting word.
Digitigrade. Yeah, not easy.
No, I don't know what that means, Eamon.
It means that the knee kind of bends back and the thing, you know, the way a dog's leg does? Like a grasshopper almost, like it pops back, yeah. Now, Rob, why don't you tell us about the first wolfman in let's not say history, let's say folklore.
Yeah, so it's either Lycia or Lycia. It's probably Lycia of Arcadia, which would be the first wolfman, and again, sort of the name Lycan, I would imagine, is derived from there. So
there it is. See, ladies and gentlemen, Rob Billington schooling you on etymology right out the gate. Gate.
Yeah. Classical Studies Billington is my actual name.
Greek and Roman philosophy Billington.
Yeah. In Greek mythology, Lycaon was a king of Arcadia who, in the most popular version of the myth, tested Zeus's omniscience by serving him the roasted flesh of Lycaon's own son, Nyctimus. Now, these names are tricky. The youngest of his 50 sons by Nonacris.
She was having none of this.
Nonacris is having none of this. His wife, in order to see whether Zeus was truly all-knowing. So, yeah, he was trying to trick Zeus.
But you can't trick Zeus. It's impossible. You can't trick Zeus.
Yeah, so in return for trying to trick Zeus, Zeus transformed Lycaon into a wolf and killed his offspring, as you do. Nicodemus was restored to life, the last surviving offspring of Lycaon.
Yeah.
So that's where Nicodemus, is it Nicodemus?
I would have said Nictimus, but it could be Nictimus. I don't know how to, I can't say it. I can barely say words I know. Never mind this shit that's fucking coming out of Greek mythology.
It's tricky.
But very interesting, yeah. So I suppose the punishment for trying to trick Zeus, was to turn him into that's where the word lycanthrope comes from, to turn him in. So he's the first werewolf we have in history, in folklore, as far as I'm aware, in mythology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems like the very first one. Yeah.
Pretty interesting. Now, so here we have the first sighting. So as we referenced before, in 1936. Now to be honest with you, man, there's a part of this that is fascinating to me. Okay, and you'll know when we get to it. So, in 1936, Mark. Oh, fuck's sake, his name. I was going to say Shackleman. Yeah, Shackleman. I was going to say Shackleman. Mark Hey, Shackleman, get in here. So Mark Shackleman claimed that he saw a talking half-wolf, half-man creature east of Jefferson, Wisconsin, along Highway 18. Okay? He's driving down the road when he sees the beast digging in an old Indian mound. He described it as covered in hair, being over 6 feet tall when standing upright, with a muzzled face and the features, this is interesting, of a canine and ape. So
a little bit of Bigfoot from our last episode?
Yeah, a little bit of Bigfoot. And I guess, would if you were to merge a human with a wolf, would the human side look more ape-like because of the hair and the texture of the skin, maybe? I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah.
But Shackleman also described a stench that emanated from the beast, similar to decaying meat. Now, you might notice this as well. We didn't cover it in our last Bigfoot episode because that's the origin. But in an awful lot of Bigfoot sightings, there's meant to be a foul smell, just the worst smell ever, that's where I suppose skunk ape comes from, because that smells so bad. You get that with a lot of demonic stuff as well, and we're going to touch on that in this episode too. So, he returned the following day to see if the creature was still there. Now, interestingly, the creature was still there, and this time it spoke a 3-syllable word that sounded like Gadara, with the second syllable emphasized. So, Gadara. Right?
Oh, and that sounds like gibberish, doesn't it?
And yet, apparently, Gadara in the New Testament is a place where a man was filled with demons and Jesus cast the demons out of him. Very interesting. So yeah.
Mark Shackleman, I wonder, my first thoughts upon reading that was is Mark Shackleman trying to, is he some type of religious dude trying to get people to, follow religion?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. The other side of it is, and again, as we'll go on and see more and more, there's some satanic stuff going on here later on in some of the sightings here and some of the lore about Bray Road. And what you find is that some people actually think that this thing is demonic in origin.
Right.
Rather than maybe some sort of, obviously you had the Egyptians had the lads with wolf heads and crocodile heads and all sorts of stuff. But people think that this is kind of demonic. So Gadara maybe lends a bit of credence to that, if that's true.
It's very interesting in the report in general. I mean, it's also interesting that it was there when he returned. I mean, almost every cryptid report that we've read is it got away as soon as I seen it.
It's a one and done. Yeah. Very interesting. But why don't you go on? Because we've put a few sightings here just to kind of whet everyone's appetite. Why don't you go on and tell us about Dennis Fulis?
Ah, yes. Good old Dennis Fulis.
Denny.
Back in 1964, Denny had an encounter with the beast described by Shackleman, only this time in Harvard, Illinois, so a little bit of ways. Around midnight, while driving home from his job at Admiral Television Corporation, Fulis turned onto Highway 89 from Highway 14 when his headlights illuminated a strange creature running across the road. He described it as dark brown in colour and possibly weighing around 400 to 500 pounds with a height of 7 or 8 feet. It's a big creature. I think a silverback weighs around that.
Yeah.
So you're talking about silverback weight, but a lot taller. So the weight would be a lot more distributed.
Yeah, because to be fair, dogmen always look fairly shredded. If a silverback looks like a sumo wrestler, a dogman looks like a Muay Thai fighter. You know?
Yeah. It's a lot more elongated and whatever. So during the incident, the beast ran across the road and jumped a barbed wire fence before Fulis lost sight of it. Our return to the location during the day presented little evidence except for the area where the beast pushed corn aside as it ducked into a field. In an interview with author J. Rath, Fulis stated that, "I was awful scared that night. There was no man. It was all hairy from head to feet." So, interesting stuff, Eamon.
Pretty weird one.
There's nothing that really springs to mind when I think of that. Maybe like a deer, as if I was trying to rationally explain it.
Yeah. Oh, if you're trying to, I suppose it says jumped a barbed wire fence, but
7-8 feet.
But again, a deer, you wouldn't. A moose, maybe you wouldn't mistake because moose would be nearly a ton, aren't they? They're like big as elephants. Or as heavy as elephants.
Yeah. Maybe a buck. I don't know. It's an interesting one. But I can't. Yeah, there's nothing that I can really logically go, "Oh, that's what it was." Aside from him talking
talking muck, absolutely. It's a funny one. Yeah, later on in 1972, a woman calls police to report an attempted break-in. Now, this one is pretty good if it's the one I'm thinking of. So when she was interviewed by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources during an investigation, the woman stated that the intruder was a large unknown animal.
Okay.
It approached her home and tried to enter through one of the doors. She also later reported the beast returned to her home and injured a farm animal, inflicting a deep wound that extended from one shoulder to the other. So her description matched that of the Beast of Bray Road, but the only evidence left behind was a footprint, which actually measured over 12 inches in length. So that's a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, and you know what? When I read that first, it reminded me of some of the big cat sightings in England. Some of those, remember, they had maimed farm animals and things like that. So definitely something wild.
Yeah. Now, when it starts to really kick off, when it starts to get popular, when it starts to get into the press, you're talking about the 1990s. I like to call it the Grunger Wolf. But some of those sightings, if you want to take us through some of those, because they're pretty intense.
Yeah, so, America had been teasing us with the Beast of Bray Road leading up to this, so it was definitely in folklore.
Yeah, they were giving us an over-the-pants hand job.
Yeah. They were giving us they were grinding on us a slide ride.
Slide ride, yes.
They were giving us a slide ride. And, it wasn't satisfying until the Grunger Wolf.
Until the pants exploded into release from their denim prison.
Yeah, until the Grunger Wolf decided to rip out of him. But the dairy farmer Scott Bray admitted to seeing a strange-looking dog in his pasture near Bray Road in September or October of 1989. So around this time of year, he described the creature as larger and taller than a German Shepherd, with pointed ears, a hair-covered tail, and grey and black fur. Again, the grey and black fur is a common thing. The beast seemed to be bulkier in the front, with a strong chest. He tried to follow the bizarre dog to a large pile of rocks, however he lost sight of it. Proof of the occurrence remained in the form of huge footprints, again with the footprints.
So people are seeing this, they're seeing these footprints.
Eamon, what about Russell Jest?
Russell Jest, he reported...
Guest?
Let's go with Guest for the crack.
Yeah.
Russell Guest, a guest to the podcast. He reported another sighting around the time of Scott Bray's sighting. He said that he was about a block away from an overgrown area when he heard the brush being rustled as if an animal was there. A beast appeared standing on its hind legs. Guest stated that it took a couple of wobbly steps forward before he ran away. As he ran, Guest looked over his shoulder to see if he was being followed. He noted that the beast had gone down on all fours, but was not chasing him. It eventually wandered towards Bray Road. Guest also described the beast as being covered in black and grey fur with a larger size than a German Shepherd. Basically, he estimated that its upright height was around 5 feet, and he said it had an oversized dog or wolf head wide neck and shoulders. So he thought it was some kind of dog or wolf hybrid because he recognized that the features were canine. Sounds to me like that one may have been a sort of an adolescent bear in the dark. I don't know.
Yeah, or just a wolf or a coyote or something.
Yeah, I suppose some of them can.
Yeah. I mean, it's what he's describing there kind of sounds like, you know, sort of like the Beast of Bodmin or something from the Big Cats episode that we did, where it was just something sort of possibly indigenous to the area that it just, you know, sort of startled them.
Yeah,
you get me?
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe it just got lumped in with the more fantastical sort of accounts because
they're all happening around the same time. Yeah, absolutely. Nirvana have just released Bleach. You know, people are. That's where we are.
Yeah. So on the fall evening of 1989, bar manager Laurie Endrizzi was driving along Bray Road, that pesky Bray Road.
The pesky old Bray Road.
As she rounded a bend, she saw what she initially perceived as a human being kneeled or hunched along the side of the road. She slowed down to take a look through the passenger side window. She was roughly 6 feet away from the figure and got a look at it for 45 seconds, which is a long time.
Yeah.
She described it as a beast with grey-brown fur, fangs, and pointed ears. She said it had a long face with a snout like a wolf. She also stated that its eyes glowed yellow, even though her headlights were not reflected on them at that point. Its arms were jointed like a human's, and it seemed to hold its food up with its palms up, which is unlike any local animal. The beast was muscular with human-esque fingers adorned in claws. Endrizzi could not see a tail, but its back legs were behind it, similar to a person who was kneeling. When did American Werewolf in London come out, Eamon?
I think it may have been sometime in the 80s. I'm pretty sure it was in the 80s. Now that you're mentioning this, we may have solved the case of the Beast of Bray Road.
I'm just 1981 it came out, right? So it was it had a good lead.
Yeah.
So, Eamon, this is where Linda Godfrey's famous sketch comes from. Now, Eamon, I don't know who Linda Godfrey is. This is your note.
Yes.
So what's the crack?
Linda Godfrey is basically, we're going to get into Linda in a little bit, but she's the person, she was a journalist in the town at the time. She began talking to the witnesses. She was basically just asked to, go talk to these people. This is being reported. And she believed it. She said she was very skeptical at the start, but she went on to completely believe all these people, when she talked to them. And, there's this famous sketch, we have a picture of it a little bit further down, which she drew. She used to be the cartoonist and the journalist for the paper. So, we're with this, I suppose, is just to illustrate how many. We have two more sightings, small ones. The last one then is the most impressive sighting in my opinion. Basically, we have another one, Mr. Mike Etten. He makes a report about a sighting that occurs in March of 1990. Now, he admits that he'd been drinking. He admits it. He said, "Look, lads, I had a few ales. If you're going to admit to that, maybe you're telling the truth." But
did you see the Beast of Bray Road when you fell asleep on the road that time?
I think I was the Beast of Bray Road when I fell asleep that time.
I'd actually say so. As if someone drove past.
Yeah, they'd be like, I saw something that I can't explain. A wolf in denim jeans. But he claims he saw a dog-like beast, that'd be interesting. He claims he saw a dog-like beast that was much larger than a domesticated animal. He describes it as sitting like a raccoon using its front paws to hold on to something it was eating near the Bray Road. So this is the Bray Road Hospital Road intersection. As he passed by, so he'd been drinking and driving. Good man. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. As he passed by, the beast looked at him with a thick, wide snout that Etten described as shorter than a dog's muzzle. Its legs were thick and it was covered in dark hair. Initially, Etten had dismissed the creature as a bear, but after hearing other similar stories in 1991, he began to wonder if that was accurate. Now, Rob, this one on Halloween night 1991, this is the big one. I read in some places that this actually took place in 1999. That's not true. I double-checked it, and it is 1991.
Yeah, okay. As well, when you were talking about drink driving, you were allowed drink drive in the 90s. It was cool to do it then.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's not cool anymore, but you were allowed. You were actually a cool dude if you drank and drove.
Well, then
90s.
Mike Etton has been exonerated, and I'd like to take this moment to formally apologise to Mike Etton. You keep drinking and... No, you can't do that anymore. Well, I hope you enjoyed it while you could. Good man.
Yeah, and I would also enjoy that one day, and this is the dream, right?
Dream.
One day we get as big as, like, Joe Rogan. We're bigger, like Monster Fuzz Mania.
Joe Rogan's all like, do you think I could go on your guys' podcast?
Yeah, we're like, fuck off, Joe.
Joe.
Yeah, we're huge. And the cryptid sightings in Wexford are you drunk asleep on the road.
All of them. Every cryptid sighting is just me hammered.
And like, everyone knows you.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, it's not podcast host, but he's like half wolf, half man. And like, they're like trying to pick you up out of the bushes and all that.
I'd be all like, back to the dawning of life.
People asking you for your autograph and you're like, wee in your pants.
I'm just, Weetabix and orange juice. I'm just howling. Roo! Rob's trying to like stage interventions with the rest of my family and all, and I'm just like, I'm a wolf. You guys don't understand me. I'm a wolf.
You're living out in Curraclaw Woods as a wolf kid.
Yeah, like I have more money than just millions upon millions of euro, but I just live by a tree.
Oh, classic. Yeah, so that's another Monster Fuzz fan fiction. Myself and Eamon are hugely famous podcasters, but Eamon has turned into a wolf man.
I've decided I want to bring my Ewok village. I've lost the Ewok village of it was destroyed. No, they've excommunicated me because I was too rich. I started letting it get to my head, wearing sunglasses and all,
bringing in new phones.
Like, yeah, fuck these wooden phones, guys. Have you heard of 2G? You know, so like we'd be doing all that, and then they're just like, Eamon, you've lost your way, and then I have to find my way again. I'm there doing fucking kung fu, like drunken monkeys, the drunken monk kung fu style.
Yeah.
It'd be like that, but just in the forest, and actually hammered and not good at fighting would be what I'd be.
That sounds quite the story. So, folks, there we've just ignited your imagination with Eamon's future fan fiction. So, Halloween night in 1991. We're not far from Halloween, folks. It's Spookoween now. We're in October. At the time it was this episode, but not while we're recording. So, this was from high schooler Doris Gibson. And she was driving down Bray Road and felt a muffled thump and pulled over to check. So she was driving down the road. She went dushed into something. Yeah, exactly. She saw this thing. It was big and started running for her. She could hear its feet on the asphalt. The claws were scraped on the trunk of the car. She was able to show these marks to Linda Godfrey when she was investigating the newspaper. Seems like a fairly coincidental date for a cryptid encounter, but sure.
So yeah, this is the one. So when Linda went to talk to this girl, basically she had said, look, something fucking crazy chased me, blah, blah, blah. She when she describes it, she didn't really get to see it at all, you know, but it was, she knew it was something big, something. She didn't call it a dogman, nothing like that. Okay. But there were claw marks. I think it was 4 or 3 claw marks on the trunk of her car, as if something had, you know, basically tried to grab her and just got the steal of the car, right?
Very interesting, yeah. I mean, if she I would be very. Is there pictures of this? Did you ever find them? No.
I didn't find any pictures of the trunk. No. Now they may have been. I tried to find some stuff from newspaper clippings, but I didn't get any pictures of the trunk. No, but I'm sure they must have taken them.
I'd be curious to see what the damage is, because like I think it'd be fairly easy to get an idea of what creature it was if we could see. If you
could see them, yeah. The other thing is, you know, it's Halloween night. It's pretty coincidental that something spooky happens here on Halloween night.
True, yeah. Maybe she just run over some kid that was like trick-or-treating or something.
It could be. Now, I don't know if you got a chance to look at the Gable film.
I did.
Below, yes. Right.
Great film. I enjoyed it.
It's good, right? Yeah, big fan. Oscar season's coming up. Gable film for number 1. So initially when I watched it, I was like, oh, that kind of looks like a bear or whatever. And this is a sighting of the Michigan dogman, who links in with the Beast of Bray Road. They're both sort of dog men, dog women. Do they identify as men or dog kin or dogzers, whatever it is they want to be called. And of course, we respect that, whatever the dog person wants to be called. But the first sighting of the Michigan dogman is in 1887, okay? Now, this Gable film is set back in the 1970s, I think, okay? Monster Quest investigated the video. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but they've covered doses of cryptids. That's where I heard of Jabba Fofi.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, Monster Troll, just to give people an idea of the film, it's a 1970s sort of camera. It has that grain, that 8mm vintage look to it. Mm-hmm. It looks very like the 70s. You see them kind of like shooting video or whatever. There's a car there that's straight out of the 70s. The set pieces look quite well. As they kind of pan over, you see this, it looks like a bear. It looks quite scary, actually. Yeah, and you see it running towards the camera. And then the next thing you see is a decapitated, or no, it's not a decapitated body, sorry. A policeman takes a sheet off a body.
Yeah, that's actually the second footage. So
yes.
The first video was it was just some kids playing on like snowmobiles or something like that, and like the car was there, and it was all very like happy, playful family home movie. And then the camera pans, and you see this like ominous, spooky shape in the trees, and it's kind of just staring at the cameraman, and the cameraman's just looking at it. And then it runs towards him, and the footage ends. And I would like to add, actually, and this kind of goes to all of our cryptid footage stuff and like everything we talk about, is the footage looks CG. Like the bear looks kind of CG, like the bear-shaped object. And we will go on to find that it is not CG. But it's just interesting food for thought that a lot of the time when you see some video evidence of things, you're like, oh, that's CG. So, yeah, that was just something that I took from it. And so then the second video was the one that you were describing.
Yes, yeah. So the second video is where you see this guy, basically, he's... The police take the sheet off him. The legs are missing. He's in half. Entrails are there.
Condoms with jam.
Condoms with jam.
Trifle sponge.
Diaphragms full of sponge cake. Yeah, awful stuff.
Spaghetti bolognese. All that shit's all over the floor.
But
quite grisly.
It is quite grisly. Yeah, and it's done very well, to be fair. Mm-hmm. But Monster Fuzz tracked down a gentleman called Mike Argusa. We didn't. That's meant to be Monster Quest. It must have auto-corrected as I was typing, because I'm typing Monster Fuzz so much. So Monster Quest tracked down Monster Quez. That's going to be our crossover. Monster Quez. We'll tell the dick jokes and they can do the serious stuff. They tracked down a guy called Mike Agrusa. So he created the film. He goes on to admit that it's a hoax. He said he used a vintage 8mm camera to make it look old. He was able to show Monster Quest both the car and the snowmobiles that were featured in the film that you were talking about before, and the creature who you were saying looked kind of CGI.
Yeah.
And I said as well, looked kind of like a bear. This was actually a guy in a ghillie suit, and he actually shows the ghillie suit in action too. So he shows him wearing it and like running around and all, and it does look quite frightening, I must admit.
Very interesting, yeah, because it's weird like that. You would think, you would be like, oh, that's a dog man, or oh, that's a bear, when it's literally just a dude in a ghillie suit. It's really effective.
It totally worked, yeah.
And a ghillie suit, I suppose, for people who don't know what a ghillie suit is, because I'm sure there are people that don't play Call of Duty who don't know what a ghillie suit is. A ghillie suit is basically like, if you've ever seen like in video games or anything, that sniper, and he has all the like tree camo, sort of all the bushes hanging off him, like that kind of wild looking kind of look.
He effectively looks like a human bush, effectively, like, or a human clump of grass or something like that.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, so Agrusa, he used spray foam insulation for the dead body's entrails, and he actually dug a hole in the ground to hide his legs. So, hey presto, there you go, severed body,
It was really well done.
It was really well done, yeah. So the Gable film, unfortunately, is a big stinking hoax. However, it was made very well, so thanks for that, Mr. Agrusa. And I, for one, Rob, hope that his Hollywood career is coming along.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's funny, in cryptozoology, me and Eamon are fairly firmly into it now, I suppose, at this point, but I actually don't mind hoaxed footage. I think it's kind of funny a lot of the time. Sometimes it'll help spread a bit of lore, a bit of, mystique, and I think it gets people talking. I think it's interesting. So, why not? There's no harm. I mean, obviously, well, in some cases, maybe there is harm. I mean, I don't know if there's any statistics for maybe people that have died possibly pursuing cryptids.
Yeah.
But maybe it has happened.
Well, yeah. We talked in the last episode about interdimensional Bigfoots who rob people from the forest. So if that's true, maybe don't go out looking for cryptids too often.
Yeah, because I maybe not so much dying going squatching, but I'm talking about dudes that are like looking for Jabba Fofi or Makele Mbembe or any of those dudes.
Oh, going out into the
getting like malaria or something and fucking dying. So
that seems a lot more likely than getting abducted by an interdimensional Bigfoot, to be fair.
Yeah. And those Nigerian tours sounded pretty, or Congolese tours sounded fairly gnarly now, to be honest with you. So, so the next big sighting, I suppose, is the Michigan Dogman footage, is it? Or
well, this is the first sighting of the Michigan Dogman. Well, maybe not the first sighting, but the Michigan Dogman is the cryptid that is most like the Beast of Bray Road, Yeah. So yeah, go on and let us know what happened there. And the footage is there. Now I had to blow that up to try to make it so if you want to make it smaller, the resolution would be better. I'll take a quick look.
I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it looks, from what we're seeing here, guys, have a row of streetlights. It's nighttime, it's dark. And I am looking at what looks like a Mortal Kombat character behind a lamppost in some type of mid-fighting pose.
It kind of looks like one of the Ninja Turtles from the new movies in black and white and grainy.
Yeah, that's a good shout too. It's basically the silhouette of something turning and contorting in a sort of unnatural way. Would I be right in saying that, Emma?
Yeah. And whatever it is, you're saying it looks like something from Mortal Kombat. I'm saying it looks like a mutant turtle. So whatever it is, looks fucking weird enough to not look like a human, right?
Yeah, I would say it does not look human. And interestingly enough, it looks kind of like that footage that we were talking about where you look at it and you're like, oh, that's like some type of CG.
Yeah.
But as I said previously, it's like, well, you never know.
Yeah.
So in 1961, a night watchman patrolling a manufacturing plant in Big Rapids, Michigan, saw a strange figure that he thought was a person until he noticed the dog-like features. He was about to shoot it with his gun, but then decided to shoot it with his camera. Smart man. Yeah. Not as effective in terms of killing, but sure however. Above is the picture, blurry to say the least, or to paraphrase the late, great Mitch Hedberg, maybe. Dogman is just blurry and the cameras are fine. Yeah,
that was a Mitch Hedberg original. He said, I don't know if you ever heard him do stand-up. He was one-liner after one-liner.
Oh, okay.
Like his thing was like, somebody offered me a banana. Oh no, it was somebody offered me a frozen banana and I didn't want it. So I took it because I thought I might want a regular banana later.
Oh, right. And he had it like that. Yeah, punny.
Yeah,
like, kind of
punny. He's a dude who's mad out of it in heroin on the grunge era. He was fantastic. Okay. But he had another one. He goes, what was it? Rice is brilliant when you want 1,000 of something.
All right.
So okay, yeah, you don't like him. You don't like him. But he did have a joke about the cameras being fine and Bigfoot being blurry.
Do you know what, Eamon? Actually, It's a strange thing. I'm not really into stand-up comedy much at all. I like stand-up comedy when I'm in the room.
Yeah.
Like if I go to a show, I'll enjoy it and I'll laugh. But if I watch a comedy special on Netflix or something, forget it.
Right.
Whack. I'm not into it. There is literally zero Netflix comedy specials I've watched and thought were good. And like, I'm not, look, it's not, I think it's more me being odd than I think it is the specials. But yeah, it's a weird thing for me. Yeah. I kind of prefer laughing at like people's misfortunes and things like that, to be honest. So maybe that's
that
it.
Could be it. That could be it.
I just prefer conversational laughs. Like, for example, you've made me laugh probably way more than fucking Joe Rogan ever would on a special. Do you get me?
Because we just be talking shit. Yeah, I know what you mean. I would definitely laugh more talking shit with people than I would watching a stand-up thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a strange. Sometimes stand-up can be very good, and there's a few stand-up comedians I really like. I really love a classic, and if you're talking about one-liners and sort of punny, quick stuff, what's his name? Jimmy Carr is quite funny. I enjoy him.
He's very jeery funny as well. I get why you'd like him. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not so big on Frankie Boyle. Because I kind of feel like he's shock for shock sense, if you get me. Sometimes. There's another guy in Mark Normand in America.
Mark Normand's funny, man. I think
I really like him.
Hilarious, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's good. I watched him and I was like, oh, this guy's kind of like an American Jimmy Carr.
Yeah.
He kind of is like that kind of style.
And he's super goofy. He's way goofier than Jimmy Carr, like purposely goofy, you know?
Yeah. No, I really enjoy him. So that's our stand-up comedy show.
Yeah, there you go now. Go watch stand-up if you like, or just talk to your friends and laugh more. Whatever gets you going. Now, as we've seen in a few episodes before as well, Rob, we're once again sponsored by Liminal Spaces trademark.
Of course. We have to be here, yeah.
Now, so, there are many, many reported hauntings in Wisconsin. There's also many UFO sightings. Allegedly, Elkhorn got its name because someone saw an elkhorn hanging from a tree, right? But there are no elks in Wisconsin, so somebody must have been holding onto an elk horn for ages and then just thrown it in a tree, which is weird.
Possibly native antics.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's an aquatic monster said to lurk in Lake Winnebago. There's records of encounters with ape-like creatures from the 1800s.
Winnebago of Winnebago fame.
Winnebago man. Yeah. And it's also home to a handful of cults. Elkhorn has found itself embroiled in the occult. Lots of satanic stuff. In 2011, 2 women lured a man back to their apartment, stabbed him 20 times, and I think the victim actually survived, but he claimed it was a satanic ritual. And Slenderman, Wisconsin is also where the Slenderman attempted murder took place.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
What is the Slenderman murder, Emma?
The Slenderman murder, we'll probably do an episode about it, to be fair. It was when 2 girls, who I believe were in around the age of 12...
Slenderman is that fucking Minecraft shit. It's like...
Well, it was like a creepypasta thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically like a dude in a business suit with no face who can like appear and disappear and has giant arms and tentacles.
He was
stuff.
popular around like the rise of like the YouTube video game Let's Play time.
Well, he's still pretty popular. Like they made a film of it only a couple of years ago, and
that's right.
But basically, with the murders, it was 2. There's the whole lore of Slenderman is he has these things called proxies, and they like do the work for him and all this sort of mad stuff. There's actually a large amount of people who write Slenderman erotic fiction as well.
Lovely.
Which is hilarious because Slenderman can't nut because he has no openings in his body, and that becomes a narrative device. It's fucking bizarre. I was just
You're a fan, are you?
Well, I write most of it. So basically, 2 girls, I think they were about 12, lured another girl to a forest, stabbed her like something like 35 or 40 times or something. She survived.
Yes.
She survived.
Wow. What's with these motherfuckers stabbing people 40, 20 times?
I don't know. But the 2 girls were doing
Satan would want to sort this shit out. Like, he's not, I'm not that scared of Satan if I'm getting stabbed 20 times and I'm walking away.
Well, this is it, yeah. But the thing is with this girl, she managed to survive, but the 2 girls who tried to kill her, they thought that by doing this, they would go to Slenderman's house and he would take them in and all. Just weird stuff, man. Really weird stuff. And
this actually happened, yeah?
Oh, yeah, this happened only a couple of years ago. There's a documentary on it and everything, yeah.
Oh, lovely. Well, like, you think it's satanic rituals. I want to be going around with, like, fucking condoms filled with jam and fucking trifle sponge going around going, I've been killed. And they're like, they have to really doing a number on me.
Yeah, well, I think, and you want to have, like, some sort of, like, heavy metal in the back. And do you know what I mean? Like
Dimmu Borgir.
Yeah, Dimmu Borgir. Yeah, that'll do. But yeah, Bray Road, it's just down Geneva Street. And it was rarely travelled until the 1960s. The Bray family would have moved there in the 1890s, so it's just your traditional rural road, and it used to be a Native American trading trail. So there's
stop right there.
Yeah, so the road itself, maybe that describes how the elkhorn got in the tree,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, but like, if it's a Native American, if the Native Americans are involved on this road, well then, say no more really. Of course, there's going to be a cryptid there, right?
Well, this is it. This is exactly it. Because as we said in the last episode, the poor old Native Americans were haunted with cryptids. Now, I will, in a previous episode, I believe, it was an Ask Me Anything question where they asked me one of my favourite, cryptid stories. I dug it out. It's from episode 106 of the Higher Side Chats, which is with Linda Godfrey, who Rob is going to tell you all about now. She's the lady who coined the name the Beast of Bray Road.
Hi, yes, good old Linda. I know her well. She coined the name the Beast of the Bray Road, and has written pretty extensively on the topic, and also writes about other urban legends, cryptids, and spooky goings on. So think of her more of like a reporter version.
She's like a pound for pound ladies champion of cryptid writing. If John Keel is the men's champion, then Linda Godfrey's women. Linda Godfrey's probably the pound for pound best, including men and women. I'd say she has a huge amount of books out there.
Yeah, for sure. December 1991, many reports are coming from residents about a dog-like man, the grunge wolf. People were calling it a werewolf. There was a manila folder labelled werewolf that police had because there were so many sightings.
Sightings? Well, it could have been sightings. A lot of people shiting on about this werewolf. Yeah.
There's a lot of sightings. That could be our new term for sightings.
Sightings. Sightings we don't believe are now sightings. Yeah, that's fair. Sightings. That's fair.
Those from people saying, I don't know what it was, but it looked a lot like a werewolf. It stood on its hind legs. There are even sightings of the wolf chasing a deer on its hind legs. When Godfrey interviewed these people, she thought they were credible and came from different demographics. Godfrey noticed that the closer in time the interviews were reported, people have a very extreme fear response.
So it's like the closer to the time people reported it, they had that. She said she could see the fear in their eyes. She could feel it off them almost, like they were legitimately afraid of something.
I get you, yeah. This happens with Bigfoot sightings also. Arguably, Linda has done more to popularise the Beast of Bray Road and Dogman than any other living person.
And there's her little sketch of the dogman eating the roadkill that the lady described. So
the sketch looks, it looks like a wolf with human.
Yeah, basically, it looks exactly how you'd imagine it would look.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the crack with Linda?
So, a quick bio on Linda Godfrey. She's an author, an investigator, and an artist. She has published 18 books on strange creatures, phenomena, and people. She's a frequent guest on national TV and radio shows, including the Wall Street Journal, Chicago Tribune, Small Town Monsters. So she was featured heavily in the Beast of Bray Road's documentary that I was saying I'd watched. Legend Seeker TV shows, Dead File, The Unexplains, In Search of Monsters, Monster Quest, all those kind of things. Lost Tapes, Monsters and Mysteries, Coast to Coast AM. So she's like she's the head honcho when it comes to cryptids and stuff like that. She's been on a lot of shows like Jenny McCartney and things like that, and she lives in Kettle Moraine in southeast Wisconsin with her husband. Shout out, yeah, and her monster dog Grendel. Now, I have said that she has like some frequently asked questions, which I thought if we explain her answers here in the podcast, it might give you a bit more of an idea about the Beast of Bray Road and her experience with cryptids in general.
Right, yeah. Do you want me to take the first one?
You take the first one.
So, one of our most frequently asked questions is, pause down, what is the beast really? Is it a natural animal or is it supernatural? And her answer is, she doesn't know. We simply don't have enough evidence to say it. And there's a high probability that everyone is not always seeing the same thing. Yes, absolutely. There could be a biological, physical animal seen by some, while others see phantoms or supernatural entities from a variety of sources. A few may be misidentifications or hoaxes. So,
and I think that is a fairly measured point of view. She's kind of saying, look, some of them are fucking people messing, some of them are people getting it wrong, some of them are probably this biological thing, and then other people are reporting supernatural stuff. So she's sort of leaving the door open everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, and I don't think there would be as many hoaxes as you would think either. Like, I think most people don't want the hassle of having to deal with it. Now, obviously, some people would be making hoaxes for that very reason, but I don't think I think a lot of people wouldn't be arsed to like ring up and getting into all that shite. Like,
most people wouldn't.
Interviews and all.
If you think about the amount of, if you were to just take the amount of sightings that are reported, you probably don't have the amount of people willing to come forward and talk shite. Like, if I even said to the paper I saw a UFO now, they probably wouldn't print it, you know?
Yeah, no, they wouldn't bother drivers.
They'd be right too. I'm a terrible fool. But she's also been asked, has she ever seen the creature herself? And she says, no, although I'd like to. I've hiked many times in Kettle Moraine trails, camped out in sightings areas. She's driven many miles. But to her knowledge, no one with the exception of a handful of previous witnesses has been able to go out and actually see the creature on purpose. However, she tempers this by saying she did see an upright, grey-furred back of something that was 7 feet tall when she was on location with Monster Quest in 2006. So she's not saying it wasn't a bear, could have been a giant bear.
Could have been a giant bear.
But she's just saying she saw something. She doesn't know what it is. And that's that.
Right, okay, interesting. So, the man-wolf seems, by her question here, to ask what time of day is the man-wolf most frequently seen? And it generally occurs between 10:30 p.m. and 5 a.m. And some have occurred at either twilight, dawn, or daytime. So that's interesting.
So she says, most occur between 10:30 and 5, but the rest occur anytime.
So yeah, essentially, not all the time, but also all the time.
Yeah.
Question 4, Eamon.
So what time of year is the man-wolf most seen? So is it like, does it hibernate, blah, blah, blah? But she's basically saying that sightings occur all year round, but they tend to peak between August and October, when the high cornfields facilitate covert movement, or potentially when the high cornfields obscure what's actually there and make people think they're seeing dogmen. Potentially,
yeah, true,
do you know?
High cornfields are fairly creepy, to be quite honest with you. Is there anywhere in Bray Road that you can camp well and hope to see the werewolf? I suppose the answer is nowhere. The land on Bray Road is actually privately owned and it's under increasing development. People who see you on their land will call the sheriff and report you for trespassing. You must obtain permission from landowners to walk in the fields or woods. You'd be better off camping in one of the many Kettle Moraine State Forest campgrounds and hiking the more remote trails. Sounds like a fun time, actually, Emma, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. She goes on to say that it is not cool to steal the Bray Road sign. It's criminal and it's disrespectful, but I can imagine a lot of people would like to have it because it's a pretty cool memento. So I understand it, but it's wrong.
Yeah, there's probably, look, if there's not a company making fucking Bray Road signs for Turbo Mards,
that's
get on it
true.
And start doing
That's
it.
true. Maybe we should do that.
Yeah, we should. That's monsterful. So we've actually copyrighted Bray Road now, guys, from this episode, so we don't want to hear any more shit.
Whoop, whoop.
Eamon, is it seen near cemeteries?
This is interesting. She says that she does find more and more sightings are near cemeteries and old sacred burial and effigy mound sites. Also crossroads. Which crossroads, I don't know, Robert Johnson, selling your soul to the devil, if you ever heard about that, So, churches and military areas. Now, military areas could be, I mean, that'd be more your laboratory experiment stuff. But it's pretty interesting that, you know, we're going to go on to talk about it being demonic in a few seconds. And also that she's saying, yeah, actually, there seems to be some sort of burial sites, churches, cemeteries. So I don't know, is there something in that?
She gets asked about whether the Beast of Bray Road is a Native American legend, as we've kind of discussed, and yeah, many tribes have legends, and our listeners will be familiar with those legends, absolutely. Because one of which is the Navajo skinwalker or the Cree skin changer. Yeah. So yeah, we've covered that, so do give that episode a look. And there is a mistaken notion that the creature might be a Wendigo. So again, there's a Wendigo episode there, guys. Don't listen to it. But these mythic beasts are usually described as 20-foot tall skeletal creatures made partly of ice and related to starvation, cannibalism.
I don't think we said that. Our research. But again, look, she has books all about Native American beliefs, but I didn't get the 20-foot tall skeletal creatures made partly of ice when we did our research.
No. I think she's like sort of conflating the famine with the Wendigo more so, right?
Potentially, yeah, could be. But again, she's much more of an expert than us, so we'll...
Eamon, come on now, stop.
I suppose, sorry. So she says, yeah, how long the sighting's been going on is another frequently asked question, just as we talked in Jefferson in 1936. We covered that one first, so we're probably as good as Linda is.
Oh, of course.
And now this one, does the creature ever hurt humans, Rob?
Contrary to a werewolf slasher video that uses my title, The Beast of Bray Road, I do not have a single report of any human being injured by a man-wolf beyond one man in Quebec who was scratched deeply on his hip and side, although many people have been thoroughly frightened by his aggressive actions and posture. It seems to be more of a scavenger and hunter of small game and deer. Its main aim when encountered is to get out of sight as quickly as possible. So it's not really interested in being famous, Eamon, is it?
No.
It's not out trying to sign autographs and fucking,
It's not into the almost famous stuff. Just down below, I've just put in, like I was saying to you, I couldn't find pictures of the trunk with the scratches in it, but there's some of the original newspaper reports that would have been made. You can see them down there. Now, interestingly, here's another one, right? There's a contemporary sighting, and if you scroll down, you'll see this picture of the walking, and that literally looks like a dog walking upright, right?
Yeah, it looks really funny.
It does look funny.
Like my golden retriever, when she fucking she stands up, like she'll hold my hand kind of and stand up on her back legs. It kind of looks like that.
It looks exactly like that. Now look at the arms though. The arms are skeletal, which is pretty weird.
It is absolutely skeletal, and there's one of two things going on there, I suppose. One is that they photoshopped it in.
Yeah.
Like, they took a picture of roadkill and then photoshopped it, turned it up, right?
Yeah.
Because if you put that down on its side, it would look like it's lying on its side as well.
That's true, yeah. Now, the light does look well, I must say, because you can see the way the headlights trail off. I'm not saying it's not Photoshop, but the lighting does look well, doesn't it?
Yeah, lighting is tricky when you're doing Photoshops. Like, that is a hard thing to get right. Now, the other thing that they could have absolutely done is, if we're talking about yokels in the middle of nowhere, who don't give a fuck about fucking with dead animals, they could have stuck a stake through the dog, and it could actually be its roadkill that's basically just stood upright.
Yeah, that they've actually, yeah. I remember reading a long time ago, there was a competition for like whoever could take the best natural image, and someone took this amazing picture of a wolf jumping over a fence to a farm. Right. But they actually got the prize taken off them because it turned out it was taxidermied wolf, and they had just suspended it with twine or whatever. But it was an unreal picture. But
really?
Yeah, it was fantastic. But they were made a fool of because of their.
Send that to me.
I'll try find it. Yeah, it's years and years since I've seen it now. But to talk to you a bit more about this, listeners, basically what we're looking at. It's from the website fringeparanormal.wordpress.com, and it's in response to their Beasts of Bray Road's post from 2011. Okay, there's a picture here of this skeletal, it's skeletal armed dog that's upright, but it actually looks like a dog on its hind leg. It doesn't look like a big beast or a monster. It actually just looks like a dog on its hind legs with skeletal arms. It's kind of strange. So this image was taken by a Wisconsin man named Danny Morgan. Morgan claimed to have taken the photograph along the Town Line Road near Elkhorn. And as I was saying, the image shows a canine-like creature standing on its hind legs and walking across the road at night. However, many have been skeptical of the photo's authenticity, and one sticking point for this is, as Rob and me pointed out, the right forelimb, which appears to be skeletal. So Rob, you could be onto something with the roadkill that they just kind of messed around. Now, here's another one. We have a story from July 2011. This is a modern sighting as well. If you want to read this out, Rob, this is from Fringe Paranormal again.
Right, yeah. So it's Fringe Paranormal gang. We out here. To begin with, I don't feel comfortable talking about this. I don't want to be thought of as one of those people.
What do you mean, those people?
Well, one of them mentals, I suppose. As I write that, I feel bad for using a label like that after what I witnessed. A group of us were talking about camping at work, and I told them a story that I was reluctant to tell. One guy spoke up and said, "That's the Bray Road Beast." I didn't know what that was, so he told me about it and I started looking it up. I don't know how much I believed about what I read, but all I know is the sentence instantly gave me the goosebumps. Bowie claimed the creature was able to leap a bigger leap than dogs run.
No.
Okay. This is what I saw. Anyway, here is what I have to say. It was about 2007 or 2008. I asked my wife last night and she wasn't sure, but that we were still living at our old house. She remembers because I came home that day. Why is that odd? Well, because my son and I had planned on camping that night as well, and she wasn't expecting us home till the next day. She also remembers me telling her the story, and she had never seen me act so scared. I wish I had the exact date, but I don't. I believe it was a Saturday morning at about 6 to 7 a.m. I had just woke up and had to pee. Shouts out to Eamon.
Oh, that's terrible. Even last night I woke up from a nightmare and had to do a wee. And I think in the nightmare my family died, but I cared too much about not pissing my bed to really worry about that.
I have to wee, at night all the time. I spend the hours. Like, I have to get up generally during the night once anyway.
No bueno.
Do you want to take it from here, Eamon? Because this is a wall of text.
It's a wall. Here. So he goes out to the tent with the dog. He puts her on her leash and walks to the edge of the campsite to relieve himself. I'd be doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
That's when he sees his dog back up and growl. A second later I heard this sound. I don't know how to describe it in words. Kind of like a fast exhale of something breathing hard but low. That sounds about right. I can't even type this without feeling creeped out. The sound wasn't normal. We were in we were in a campsite kind of at the bottom of a light sloping hill with a tree line behind us. As I looked up towards the sound, I saw it. It was big, very fast moving, on all fours, and it was taking huge leaps, and every time it leapt, it let out that sound. It wasn't coming... Spooky. It wasn't coming directly at me. Thank God. It was coming down the hill at an angle to my right. It was moving through the tall glass, so when it landed between leaps, I couldn't see it, and when it leapt, I only saw the top of it. But what I saw was dark brown, close to black, long matted looking hair fur. I don't recall the face as much as I remember how big it was. It looked built, for lack of a better word, kind of like a dog, but way bigger than any dog I've ever seen. A dog doesn't leap like that either, or make god-awful sounds. I didn't see the legs or much of the back end. I'd say what I like to. I don't have much for details, so I apologise. All I know is that I was frozen. I've never seen anything that made me freeze up like that before.
Interesting. So, I'll take it from here, Evan.
Yeah, kill it.
I didn't go back to Camp Quad for a couple of years after that. My son was only 12 or 13 at the time, and he was still in the tent, but I remember how freaked out he seemed to be because I was so freaked out. We literally packed up the site and went straight home. Thinking back, was this the typos?
Yeah.
When you're copy and pasting, we sometimes will take people's reports in, and reading these is let's torture because there's no punctuation.
The grammar is so bad, yeah.
The grammar is shit. Well, let's see, where am I? Thinking back with how I would have reported this when it happened, possibly could have found tracks. I don't know what that means. Could the tracks still be there? Probably not. But I don't think people walk through the area I seen. It leaped through, so maybe it's possible. All I know is that I saw something I can't explain, and I wish I hadn't. I don't like the thought of there being something out there like this. My only comfort is that it didn't actually seem interested in me, or maybe it didn't notice me. I also haven't read any stories that it actually hurt someone. It only hurt animals. I don't know what happens now. I'm thinking about talking to the groundskeeper there. I worry about what people will think if they hear I'm telling this story. Is that stupid or what? I don't care if you or anyone else believes me, to be honest, because I know what I saw. Anyway, it kind of felt good to at least type this. I have camped at Camp Quad more over the last couple of years, but every noise I hear now gets my attention. That was from Bill. Thanks, Bill, for fucking wrecking me head.
Yeah, potentially Bill Gates. Maybe that's what he's like talking about Microsoft and dogmen. Yes. Who knows? But yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, you look, whether it's true or not, it seems like if you were going to make up a story, you could make up a more impressive story. Does that make sense? Because, like, it's just about basically the cornfield, and you could see something coming up over it, but couldn't make it out properly.
Yeah, just noises and the cornfield. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, which could be scary. Now, here's when we get into the black arts, the demons, the Satanism. Okay,
spooky.
So, as we were talking about earlier in the podcast, we said that some people think that the beast is actually demonic in nature and it's supernatural. They think that it's actually been conjured. Right. You know? So, local satanic cults, as we spoke about before, were rumoured to have been meeting in the forests of Elkhorn. And in fact, John Fredrickson, who was a police officer in the area, received calls that there were satanic goings-on in the area. Now, this is in the time of the satanic panic in definitely the 80s and maybe some of the 90s.
There was a bit of satanic madness going on, wasn't there?
Well, satanic panic apparently a lot of people were reporting that, like, Satanism was happening everywhere, but it actually wasn't. Right. So it was panic, but there wasn't. Hysteria. Yeah, a little bit of hysteria. But Fredrickson did say that he found mutilated animals, etc., and he was able to vouch that some of the satanic activity was true. Apparently, Walworth County was one of the most prevalent counties for satanic cults, he was told by a higher up.
I believe, was it around that time that Loftus Hall was accused of being satanic rituals as well? Like
1980s,
was it? It closed. I think it was after it closed recently and before it reopened again. So it would have been in the 90s probably. So maybe a bit of satanic panic in Wexford.
Well, I'd say you probably want, like, again, if you're going to be doing rituals and all that sort of mad stuff, you probably want some, you know, you want a place it's got, like, you don't want to just be doing it in a fucking rented office, like, you know, you want the feel. You want the whole thing, you know, you want the feeling of it. But why don't you go on, in linking in with that, why would they have used the wolf symbol, Rob?
The wolf symbol is seen as a violent force in society, as we know, again. An individual who has lost control of themselves or their desires. When you think that one of the first sightings of the dogman uttered Garada, is it possible that the Beast of Bray Road is a wolf demon that has been conjured by the Dark Prince himself, Lucifer?
Oh.
Eamon, are your pants okay?
Oh no, somebody shat my pants. Somebody's after shitting. Somebody left Weetabix in my pants.
Someone put shit in your pants.
It's, you know. So Rob, I suppose that's the entry level. That's like the junior cert of the Beast of Bray Road, you know?
Yes.
That's your GCSE, is that what they call it in England? That's probably not.
GCSEs, whatever exam you do in America when you're 16, 15.
Yeah.
That's what this is of the Beast of Bray Road. What do I think it is, Eamon? Is that what you're asking?
That's what I'm asking.
I don't know, man. It's an interesting one. Maybe just an amalgamation of a bunch of different shit that's going on. Could it be American Werewolf in London?
I didn't actually think about that, but it's a good little shout by yourself that it could be some people misidentifying it. Maybe video stores were opening around then and they were renting it out for the first time.
Well, werewolves were very much like pop culture at that time. Yeah. Like that, they were very much at their
Well, that's
peak
true. You had like the howling and all that sort of shit as well, right?
Yeah.
Ginger snaps.
It was definitely a pop culture time for werewolves. It was a little bit of a renaissance for them, I think. And actually, interestingly, I was listening to the Wild Atlantic Weird podcast. Shouts out to our boy Keen. And he was mentioning that werewolves are one of the like only sort of monsters that do not have a central fiction piece. They don't have like the Frankenstein. They don't have the Dracula.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, of the big. They
don't have a home.
Yeah, that's interesting.
They've always been like the background player. They've never been the main.
I think like the closest sort of literature you'd have to werewolves would kind of be like the Jekyll and Hyde, right? Like turning into something and not being able to control yourself. And Jekyll and Hyde is more of a like cautionary tale against alcoholism than anything else, you know, because your man takes whatever drug and he goes bananas.
I to be honest, I don't know. I don't really have a solid theory. It's a hard one. I think a little bit of everything at the time made for a perfect opportunity, and this is definitely not the last time we'll do Dogman, so hopefully my understanding of him will improve over time. But Dogman is one of the ones that seems the most like bollocks to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit more of a supernatural leap. How's it about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you'd imagine Dogman would almost be easier to misidentify. Like, I guess a bear looks like a dog more than a Bigfoot. Does that make sense? Like, in its face.
Yeah.
So if you were to see, I mean, is it possible that you're just seeing a bear? But the other part of it is, there's a lot of sightings of these things. So, like, I don't know, man. I find it really difficult to try to figure out what's happening. Like, is it just that this is like folklore where kind of like, but we're saying, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like modern folklore is built on these accounts that people are coming forward and saying. But again, like I said in previous episodes, and I say with the UFOs and ghosts and all the rest of it, if even one of these is true and people aren't misidentifying or, you know, freaking the fuck out or whatever, that's like a total game changer, you know?
I think the thing with Dogman that kind of throws me off is that there are a lot of wild dog creatures.
That's
that
very
roam
true.
Around,
Yeah, it's very true.
Know, you have wolves, you have like coyotes or coyotes, whatever way you want to say it. You've got wild dogs. You've got potential wild cats on the loose. You've got bobcats.
Yeah.
You've got deer that maybe are manky and have fleas and mange. Maybe you have bears that are the same. Now, none of them outright explain it 100%, but if you factor in maybe different accounts seeing different things, maybe blah blah blah, maybe it is what they say. You know, maybe it is just a mix of all that stuff.
It's tricky to know. I mean, like, a lot of people have said that it could be a skinwalker, and you can see the similarities, human-animal hybrid type things, shape-shifting. And many accounts do reference the strange eyes, you know?
Right.
Now, I know the skinwalkers, we said, would have human eyes when they were animals and animal eyes when they were human. So, I don't know. Again, go back, listen to the Skinwalker episode if you haven't. It links in with a whole lot of shit that we talk about on this podcast. So yeah, a good one to that, and the Wendigo are nice, accoutrements for a dog person episode.
For sure.
But yeah, I think what do you think about dog person, werewolf, all that sort of stuff? Dog man. Should we be changing the name? Would a were-vixen? That sounds a bit more in the parlance of our time, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, were-vixen's a nice name.
That's like a foxy kind of. I think she seems like a kind of attitude.
But you're kind of getting into furry territory there. I feel like that's probably a furry's name, were-vixen.
Do you know what? Now that you mention it, I'm getting some more flashbacks there from that Bigfoot cantina thing that we did in the last episode.
Yeah.
I think I might have been dressed up as a were-vixen at one point. The Bigfoots are running the train, you know. Choo choo, I choo choo choose you.
I think furries, man, that's a weird thing as well. That's a fucking hell.
I think
maybe we'll do an episode on furries.
Maybe, but I was reading some psychology book a while ago, and they were talking about just general, like what we would say is normal sort of sex behavior, or stuff you're into, you know. But they were saying a lot of it actually is kind of unsettling, because when you trace it back, oftentimes a lot of that stuff it's actually things that sort of made you feel comfortable when you were very young, you know. And that's where you get some of these weird imprints from. Like, I've heard about guys who are sexually attracted to balloons, but when they were a kid, for whatever reason, when they had maybe their first sexual experience, they had a balloon, and maybe it just touched them in a weird way when they were playing with it, and they're like, ooh, now I like balloons. Like, this squirrely time, man, you can get weird stuff imprinted on you. You've seen people who are into roller coasters, like they've married, other women have married guillotines and stuff. It's crazy shit out there.
And there's that one of them serial killers on Netflix I watched, one of them documentaries.
Is that the Piers Morgan stuff that he's...
Yeah. One of them was saying like that when he was playing with like a little girl, he was young as well, the two of them were friends or whatever, and he was playing with her and he kind of choked her when they were messing. And that was basically it for him.
That was game, set and match. Jesus. Madness, isn't it?
Yeah. And he says it himself. He was like, that's what it was. He was like, I can trace it back. I know exactly the time and I know exactly what happened. I think it was the dude who he murdered, I think, like 4 girls around like his trailer park area. It was weird.
Yikes, yeah. It's amazing that, like, you could actually trace it back and have the wherewithal to be like, yeah, that's where it started. And not to have the other part of your brain's kind of like, yeah, we probably shouldn't do that though. Like that will kill someone, and that's not a good thing. And I'd say these guys usually have really fucking shit upbringings as well, though, right?
He had a good upbringing.
Oh, really?
That was the thing that separated him. Yeah,
he was just a bad egg. He's just born bad.
Yeah, but like he it's weird. Like, I think from like Piers was saying himself, he was like, I'm quite conflicted because like I would get along with you. Like, he was like, in any normal circumstance, you and I would be probably friends. We seem to have a good rapport with each other. But he was like, yeah, you've done this crazy shit. Like, so he's more sort of seemed like a guy who just couldn't control his compulsion, and his compulsion was a very fatal character flaw that was going to be problematic for him to survive in society.
Yeah,
so
get in control of your demons, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's nicotine or alcohol or choking young ones till they die. Maybe if you have the last one, try nicotine and alcohol, see if that kind of gets rid of it.
Actually, yeah. So it was a weird one. Word to watch though. I can't remember what the name of that particular one was.
I saw one, man. I saw one, and it was the dude killed his sister because that was the best way he could hurt his mother. I was like, what?
Yeah,
I had to turn it off. I was getting creeped out.
Did you?
Well, no, I didn't. I watched it all. But like, it was, it was really, it was just really unsettling. Like, I was like, Jesus Christ.
That is a really strange, weird one for me because it opens up a lot of questions, and I think a lot of people, and probably myself included, to be honest with you, but I think a lot of people do forget that the goal of prison, and obviously this is like a utopian prison, is rehabilitation.
Yeah.
So when you go to prison for your crime, by the time you get out, you're supposed to be rehabilitated and ready for society.
Yeah,
that's
the point of it, yeah.
Now, most people forget that and just think, oh, you've done something bad, you're going to jail for such an amount of time, and that's
there's definitely an element of punishment to it. But as you say, it's about preparing yourself for society again and reintegration.
Yeah, so then you have this really interesting question about, and guys, we're talking about, this guy was referred to as a psychopath. He was a pure psychopath. Now, I think Piers was dramatising and saying how fucking it was going on, like, oh, he's so dangerous, I have to sit behind glass, and like, your man was a fucking twerp, and not to mention he was a fucking dweeb, and not to mention that, like, Piers has interviewed lads that have murdered like 10 fucking women and sat side by side with him and gave him a lot of abuse. There's one where he sits with a guy and he's like, oh yeah, I think he killed him.
Oh, yeah,
he's like denying everything, and he's like, yeah, I think he killed him. And your man gets up and walks out. He's fucking Billy Big Balls there, and then all of a sudden he's got this little twerp who killed his sister when she was 12.
To be fair, I don't fully trust Piers. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was trying to ham up a fucking situation. But it is
absolutely.
I mean, it is very morbidly interesting to get some insight into these people.
Yeah, of course.
Because but they're made up of the same shit we are. Like, that's the part that's, and again, like the wild man. Maybe this is us, the draw here is that you recognize that there is darkness that exists in all of us. And we know that we have the capacity to do terrible things, but we also have the capacity to do wonderful, collaborative, compassionate things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I tell you, no, you're right. And I think my thing with that episode, my takeaway and things that, it's the thing that I like to discuss with people is, what would you do? What would you propose that you do with psychopaths? Like, because not all psychopaths murder. So let's say you have a system where you can diagnose a psychopath aged 10. You know that they're a psychopath. What do you do? Do you lock them up, throw them away?
Well, the scariest thing...
Because that's like eugenics kind of, isn't it? It's like that kind of thing.
Absolutely. But the scariest thing might be that... Two scary things. One is that I would imagine you're going to find a lot of psychopaths up in the highest posts of all societies. Is one
it's
thing.
A desired trait in business almost, you know.
That was what I was going to say. The other thing is that our society operates like a psychopath and rewards people for cut. No, not all of our society. We obviously have rules in this. Let's say capitalism maybe is a better way. And I'm not a guy who's total socialist or anything like that.
No.
But I do think that unchecked capitalism is a very bad thing.
There's no such thing as unlimited growth.
Like. Exactly. And I think, as we talked again in previous episodes, you can't judge everyone on the same plane because no one's starting from the same ground. So I don't think you should give people anything for nothing. But at the same time, I think that you have to look at where a person is and see what they need to try and flourish. You know, you can't just keep having people fucking having children in shitty areas and then going, oh, why is there so much crime here? It's like, that's, well, you need to fucking fix that. Like, I think you have that obligation. People say there's only two things in life that are undeniable: death and taxes. Well, I think if you're paying taxes to a country, then that country owes you more than just decent roads. Do you know what I mean? You need to have a good place to live. And I understand economics are tricky, and I understand I understand it's not a case of like just pump money everywhere. That won't work. But I think we just, as people, need to have more compassion to each other. And more compassion means not, like, it's not compassionate to call people out and fucking say this person's evil, this is that. Compassion is conversation and understanding and trying not to be right, just trying to understand and to try, I feel anyway, that's what it is for me, to try to understand and to try to just do the best you can. Like, you're going to fuck up, you're going to hurt people, and it's going to not be, it's probably going to feel shitty sometimes. But the opposite of that is to be a person who would try to kill their own sister to hurt his mother. Like, that's fucked up, man.
Yeah, and what do you think should be done with him? What's your thoughts on that?
If I'm honest, I don't know. Like, part of me just thinks, do you just create a big, like, psycho island and people who transgress? That's kind of what I thought. Like, I don't, because I think the biggest problem with the death penalty is, like, you can't, you know, you can never know. You could be wrong about a person doing something like that.
Yeah, there's improper imprisonment and all that. Like, you can't, and there's been so many cases where guys have been executed when they were found innocent later, and people on death row were found innocent, and you just can't do that. And also, you know, that isn't that kind of prescribing to the eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind type of mentality? Like, aren't you acknowledging then that you have, like, basically failed? You cannot redeem this person at all.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, it does seem.
I mean, the onus isn't on society to redeem them either. That's the flip side of it.
Well, that's the truth. And that's. Yeah. I mean, you can get into bigger conversations about whether free will exists or not. But you know, that's going way down the rabbit hole. But I do think that it's a tricky one, because it does seem that psychopathy can't really be cured. That seems to be what based on, like, I don't know if you ever read the psychopath test.
I haven't, but like, he talks, like, the guy on that, I'm sure actually talks pretty well about it. But do you think like awareness is probably the first step of rehabilitation for a psychopath? Like, at least being aware of, like, how fucked up he is, or does that help him?
I think for a psychopath,
probably helps him.
Yeah, see, they manipulate so much, like,
so they know what people think and what they expect, and they can manipulate, like, that expectation.
They don't have the same emotions that, you know, because if people are on spectrums, right? So you might have a certain amount of you that's maybe you're not as feeling as someone else, or you don't have as much empathy or whatever. Where you run into a problem is where you have no empathy. Yeah. Like, that's an issue. And if someone has no empathy and they can't even really feel human emotions, like, my understanding is the only thing that psychopaths can really feel is competition and winning.
Empathy as well, by the way, is probably like a recently acquired emotion. It's probably one that's been, like, tapped into by, again, like we were referencing earlier in the episode, religion. It's probably put on people as a way to sort of give them empathy. I mean, you know, if you look at, like, some animals do show sorrow, some don't. They just move on and they don't give a fuck. And ultimately, like, we are animals, so I'm sure there have been times in history where, you know, we wouldn't bat an eyelid at some of the fucked up shit that people would go to jail for today.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Like there's probably times, like, let's say a caveman family come across another caveman family, and you know, there's a bit of a rivalry, and the alpha male of that caveman family smashes the other alpha male's head in with a rock and kills him in front of the wife, and the wife actually applauds him.
Right,
and
yeah.
This is like, oh yeah, fantastic, like, good, you've removed the threat. Well, so you'd wonder, maybe is psychopathy a latent sort of emotion that we were sort of we required more of back in the day?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, is it a latent emotion, or is it a new variant? That's, you know, because I think it's like anything, right? Anything in excess is bad. Too much empathy, like where you can't get out of bed because you're afraid.
Sorry, boy.
That's not good either. Like, to have too much empathy where you can barely do anything yourself because you're so riddled with guilt for everything, like, that's not good. Power and self-sufficiency, that's good. Resilience is good. But too much power unchecked, that's not good either. It's all about trying to balance these different dichotomies, these different mirrors of each other. And I think that's where it is. It's all grey as well. Like, you know, you could be really easy and just be like, oh yeah, fucking kill the psychopaths.
But that's the easy answer.
It is the easy answer. But like, and maybe I don't think there is any such thing as a right answer.
It's eugenics as well. Like, it's like, you know, if that is the right word, I think, is like controlling your population, right? Of like how you want it. And I suppose psychopaths are not good in any regard. So I mean, but then it begs the question, like, further down the line, is there some other trait that maybe isn't as bad that people just don't want anymore and they just get rid of it?
Or do you find a cure for psychopathy in 2 years and you're after killing like 200 people, 2 million people? Do you know what I mean? Like, and look, there's some countries, man, that like they don't give a shit about killing people. Like, my roommates from Malaysia, you get caught smoking dope over there, you're dead. Like, that's it.
Yeah. There's some like, what was my point that I was going to say there? I think it's, there's some like pretty severe personality problems that have now been sort of cured. Like, one of them I was reading recently is borderline
Really?
personality disorder. Yeah, it's not cured, but so that's probably, if someone listening has borderline, they're probably like laughing at that. But it's not cured, but it has been. It's effectively treated now. Like, they found ways to effectively treat it with DBT and things like that, which is dialectical behaviour therapy.
That's not the one with your eye, is it? There's one that follows the eye and it relives trauma based on what the eye is doing.
I can't remember. Think it's an interesting one. I don't know. I know that CBT is about like
the cognitive behavioural.
Yeah, and DBT is something similar, but again, it's more for the more extreme mental health issues, I think. And borderline is a fairly hard one for people to deal with, I do know that.
Well, I think it's a tricky one as well, because they've said that, you know, and again, I don't know, not that I'm aware of anyone who has borderline or anything like that, but they were saying it's not like maybe some other mental disorders where the people are sort of actively trying to engage with things. Borderline can be very difficult to control your emotions, and so you can just come off seeming like, oh, there's that cunt who just fucking goes bananas every now and then. But obviously, if that's something that's wired into you, it's very hard to control. But that's, I think that's the thing. Like, look at this COVID thing where, you know, the world's locking down, it's opening up, it's locking down. They're going to find a vaccine for this. And we have found a lot of medications that help people, you know, with mental disorders. Certainly, look, even for me, man, like I'd always encourage people, try to go to therapy first, try to eat healthy, try to exercise, try to do all the shit that's meant to help you. But if it doesn't work and your society can offer you something that's going to make you happier, take it, you know, just like take it, whatever makes your life easier.
I think as well, I wanted to I was listening to Joe Rogan the other day, I wanted to headbutt him again. I was on these he had Tim Kennedy on, and it was like, bro, you know, just work out, man, and like, you're fine. And like, Joe was like, oh yeah, man, so much of the population just needs to fucking work out. That's and then bullshit, it's like fine. It's like such a fucking caveman, like idiot type of response to mental health, and it's just like, so just ill thought out, and like most people that suffer from depression are so far in the hole already that they don't want to go out and fucking run. Obviously they can do, and maybe it will help them a little bit, but maybe it won't help them. That's the worst part. Maybe if I go to jiu-jitsu, which is what Joe does, and I do jiu-jitsu, I can't do it at the minute because of COVID, but like jiu-jitsu is a bit culty that way, where it's like, oh, you're going to feel like, you know, as soon as you do jiu-jitsu, you're going to be driving around in a fucking Ferrari and riding some fucking, you know, fine one. And, you know, Joe Rogan's going to fucking somersault in your bedroom window and high-five you every morning. But that's not the case. Like, it's, and it doesn't work. Okay, it might work for 5 people, but there's 5 people it's not going to work for.
No, absolutely.
And when you tell them it's going to work, that's way more dangerous, because you've now put that in their head that this is like the ultimate way to feel better. Like this jiu-jitsu, and by the way, jiu-jitsu is one of the hardest fucking things you can do. Like it's not as if you go in and walk out and go, wow, this is great. You walk out like fucking, you know, like, some soldier in World War One, bed up. And like, you're like, okay, right, this is horrible, but I know I'll get better, and it does teach resiliency and things like that. But if you're suffering from depression, like, no, that's not going to fix it.
Not overnight, Like, look, that's like, depression's a battle, and a battle in terms of, like, you know, that people talk about medication, there's meditation, there's therapy, there is something I know that will work for everybody who has anything.
There's loads of options.
Loads of options.
You're right.
But again, don't, if you've been exercising real hard, you've been eating really well, you've been doing all the stuff you're supposed to do, and you're still like, fuck me, like I'm maybe 20% better, but I still need another 60%. You know what? Maybe that pill gives you 40%. Maybe something else gives you, maybe for some people it's smoking weed. Like, I don't know what it is that works. I just know that there's ways to augment and ways to get better. But think of it this way, right? We were talking about those psychopaths, right? For whatever reason, their brain chemistry is so much different to ours that it seems rational to kill your sister to upset your mother, right? If that exists, then variants of all types of consciousness exist, which means depression, which means anxiety, all this different stuff. The thing is just, get yourself help. If something's going to inhibit your life, try and get yourself help for it. And I think that's the thing. But yeah, definitely, it's one of the things. And again, look, I'm a big Joe Rogan fan. I just think his view, and I think there's an element of what he says is true. If you exercise and you eat healthy, you are going to feel a little bit better. Like, that will happen, you know, because it can't not happen. But to say that it's the first and the last position that you should take is fucking stupid. And it also shows someone who hasn't experienced those lows and they're not really equipped to talk about things that way, and they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's just, it's a tough one. I just think it's a poor understanding, and obviously Joel is fairly out of the bubble with everything because he's like a multi-millionaire, and to be honest, if I was in his position by his age, I'd probably be completely out of the loop, and I'd be pissing lots of people off with some bullshit that I was peddling. But like, like, I think when you sort of say anything mental health wise is, oh, you just do this and that's it. That's such a dangerous way, because that's no different than saying, oh, you just go and take a pill and then you're fine. Or, oh, you just go and do this. And as well, like, you know, most people that are suffering with depression, like, it's very hard for them to work. It's very hard for them to go and run. Like, all of that is like double the effort, double the difficulty, if not more, because, you know, it can even just be a chemical imbalance. And I just think when I hear something like that, I get triggered. And to be honest, like, for the record, I've never been medicated for depression or anything like that. So it's not something that's really extremely personal to me, or I've never really had those like extremely low lows to where like, oh, I can't clean my room, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. But it does, for some reason, it just triggers me, and I think it's probably because it feels like he's trying to speak from a place of authority on that matter when
he doesn't really.
Like, he's completely ignorant to it.
No, man, definitely, I get you. Like, look, I've had definitely moments of depression, but anxiety was a big thing for me.
Yeah, same. Anxiety was my shit. Yeah, that was my.
But
jam.
I mean, honestly, I've done, like, I exercise, I eat relatively well, all that. But for me, at least, and I can only speak for myself, I take a little Lexapro on that. It takes all the edges off, and I feel normal. And maybe, and I've been on and off it for years. Like, maybe someday I'll be off it totally. Which I have been before. It's not a big deal. But look, for me, that's what works. But, you know, also, there's probably elements of my life that I could look into a bit more and try to get a bit more healthy. That's for sure. But, it's just, you do whatever's going to get you through the day, and help you to be happy, you know? That's all you can do.
Exactly, and well, that was a nice little off to
There we go.
rails where to sort of wrap up this podcast. I think it was an enjoyable little swing down mental lane.
Yeah, we do that from time to time. We are wont to do.
Yes, we do. And yeah, just to wrap up that psychopath dude, I think he, I think that's the best course of action with him is to let him out on some psycho island.
Psycho Island would probably become the strongest economy in all the world because everyone would be cutthroat. Like,
yeah, just leave them all out there and see how they get on.
Make them pay wild taxes. Yeah,
that's kind of where I lay on it, or just kill him. Like, just put the cunt out of his misery. In any case, if you're going to, like, you know, because he's obviously itching to get out. He's like, oh, I get out in 4 years. But like, if they don't have any intention to, they may as well just say like, yeah, right, life in prison, execution. And that's it.
Or just treat him like a slave, like work 8 to 5, and then you can't leave this compound. Like, you have freedom, but you can't really do shit.
Yeah, slavery usually works out well anyway in society. So let's bring that back.
But what I mean is that, could you do a thing where he was in prison? He had to work 8 hours a day. Then he could just have 8 hours to do, you know, like us, 8 hours work, 8 hours free time, 8 hours sleep.
Right, yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean slavery like that. But I mean, if you're going to be in prison anyway, you don't have liberty, right? And you're effectively a slave. They make you work and everything. So could you do something that was sort of like a halfway house where he can't really go and fuck with anyone else, but he has certain liberties?
Yeah, that's what I think. Like, sort of like a compound, like to put the sex people in.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe it pays for itself with the work they do. That brings in enough money to make it run, and it just self-sustains. Yeah.
So, Eamon, do you have anything to add before we close out this podcast?
No, just that I'm very tired and
sleepy wee wees.
Yeah, sleepy wee wees, bum wee wee sleepies.
I'm rather tired myself, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we did 2 today. So
we did 2 today. I have 4 hours of power BI training tomorrow as well, so that's going to be.
That sounds riveting.
I actually love Excel, so for me it's great. Okay. Yeah, I'm a fucking nerd like that.
Excel gang for life. I'm fucking roasting in this bedroom because we got insulation done in the walls, and it's like it's made such a difference. So it's so fucking stuffy in here, and I can't open the window when I record because obviously noise pollution and things like that. So annoying.
Oh,
but anyway, guys, I have been Rob,
and I've been Eamon.
We are Monster Fuzz. Over and out.
See ya.